Hi, everyone. It's Annie from Phoenix Healing. I hope everyone is doing very well and just enjoying this weekend that we're having. So thought this was the best time now before it gets any later in the month of February to get the video of 2023 out there. So for this video, I'm going to be specifically talking about 2023 and what that means, especially in numerology terms and astrology. So there's a lot of information I've been researching these past couple months, and so don't mind me if I read off my papers because this is a lot of information and I'm not going to remember it all. So bear with me, but I hope you just find the information informative and, resonating and just very helpful, that you can walk through this year of 2023 more informed and also with more, knowledge regarding, yourself, but also viewing the world, humanity as a whole. And yeah, so without any more delay, I'll go right into this video. So 2023, that is a world year of 7 in numerology. And 7 is a very spiritual, it's a very faith-based number. It's also a number relating to Mother Nature and nature in general. So the 7 year is a time to look inside you. If you're somebody who asks those big questions, who am I? What am I? Why am I here? In this year of 7, you can get those answers. This year is a test of your faith. It is about true spirituality, and you will grow inwardly in this time of year. We will be dealing with the seemingly endless conflicts in the world, but looking at them in a different way. This year is about raising our consciousness as a whole, as people, and realizing that the whole planet needs to treat each other as one. And the year of 7 is a time when we recognize as well that war is not the answer. And the new year, 2023, is a time where we actually need to watch out for Mother Nature in a way that will be more intense than the last couple of years. As we made our way into 2023, a lot of people, myself included, was impacted by the snowstorm, like the blizzard in December, like late December around the holidays. I know here where I am, we had about between it was over 30 deaths, maybe over 40 even. People were trapped because so many people lost, power, and they couldn't keep warm, they couldn't feed themselves. So, obviously rest in peace for those lives that were lost. And other lives were, that were impacted as well during this, because it impacted a great deal of not even just the USA, but also Canada and other parts. And also, especially then what just happened recently with the earthquakes in Syria and Turkey, the devastation there. And it's ironic because literally just maybe a week and a half ago, I was having a conversation with my father and just talking to him one-on-one and telling him what, 2023, the energy is with that. And I said to him specifically, even to when it came to the Mother Nature part, which was that this was a time where a lot of things are going to happen involving our environment and not so nice things, basically. And then I know when the earthquakes hit over there in those countries that, where I was even located, in the very early morning, I guess here where I am, it was a 4.0 magnitude of the earthquake. I'm saying that right. I don't really know the scientific how to say that scientifically, but yeah, I remember I slept on my couch, and I felt like literally I was woken out of my sleep, because it literally felt like a car went through my house. And then I found out that other people felt that same thing, they thought a car went through their house or the building. And I mean, if that was a 4.0, and then basically how it was in the other countries, like the magnitude of that was like double. It's like, oh my gosh. And then, these lives, again, so many lives were lost, and, but they're still making, recoveries of both human life and non-human life, which is wonderful. I'm glad that they're going for, both human life and our non-human babies, because we're all God's children, no matter what form of species or, body we inhabit. We're all souls, we all have hearts. And so, it's just a time to really be looking out. And this is just now we're in February, so the second month of the year. So it's kind of just, just be aware that more things can happen this year. But it is also year two, because it's so nature-based, to be outdoors more, and especially near the water. The water also has a very calming aspect to healing. Water is also very feminine energy. That's why I think a lot of people like, taking the baths, because it's very healing. And it's just very loving, nurturing, calm energy, to be by the water, in the water. So try to be outdoors more if you can. Even it's like taking it like a little walk somewhere, just to be outdoors more. And the 7 year is a good time to assess yourself. You look at one's health, your goals, relationships, objectively, rather than as a fantasy, and then making changes for the better. The 7 energy is very impactful for our world, and raises the Earth's vibration. And for those who have a base of faith, your most fervent prayers could be answered. For those who aren't sure if there is a God, this is the time to look into the possibility of a higher power. You are not alone, and listen to your heart, listen to your intuition, listen to you. Like, this is the part where you go from ego to heart space. And just sit in that, and you stay in your heart and reflect that outwards. And also as well, that really the energy too, as I was saying earlier, like this is the time where for those, like, in the 7 year, because it's such a faith-based and spiritual number, either people are going to be drawn more to become more spiritual, or people could be drawn more to become more religious, or you can have a nice balance of the two. Could be both, because that energy is all about that. It's making people more aware to, like, yes, like there is a higher power out there. There's something much bigger than ourselves. And also the energy of, like taking better care of oneself as well, because, this is the energy too, where a lot of people, if they have cycles to break, addictions to overcome, this is the energy that's really going to work towards, achieving that goal. Obviously, like, actions need to be taken place. Someone has to really actually obviously want to do that. But the energy is working for somebody if they do want to break cycles, whether it's ancestral, like, trauma cycles, anything that is like not healthy, any mechanisms, coping mechanisms, that aren't healthy. Whether it's like substance abuse, prescription over, with the prescriptions, like addicted to prescriptions, like alcohol, drugs, both obviously the medicated, non-medicated, alcoholism, sex, and just, bunch of the stuff that is not like serving someone for their highest good. And especially for this year of 7, you're just, like I said before, like months ago, this is really the time where you're going to have to like face yourself. You cannot run yourself anymore. You're going to have to like look in the mirror and face yourself and make choices that are going to be better for you overall. Obviously, with the free will, people can be like, okay, this is not for me, and try to step away. But also at the same token, the universe also works in that way of like, yeah, you can take your little break on the sidelines where you're going to get thrown back into it. So it's better to do this now, especially in the year of 7, because the energy is working with you, not against you. It wants you to be your higher self. So if there's anything that someone wants to release that's no longer serving them, this is absolutely the time to do it. And, as I was just saying, we are in a time of overindulgence. We're overspending, we're oversexed, we're overmedicated, overdoses, overdrugged, so much addictions to like sex, alcohol, drugs, prescription drugs, and other substances. We look at around like, anytime you look on the media, I try not to do that. I can't help it if something goes on my homepage and like there's that little bar there, that little picture like saying something horrible or and something not nice that's happening in the state of the world. But we look at the state of the drug addictions, especially in the United States. The crisis of that alone is astounding. And you throw in the mental health crisis and opioid crisis and the pharmaceutical companies, like, trying to control everything. This collapse is very much needed, that needs to happen, because you have to destroy the old and what has not been working for humanity. You need to make way for the new. It's like the whole process of like when you go through the awakening, step by step, gradually, or sometimes a lot of stuff happens at once where, we're just going to take it away. So it's like always serving for your highest self, though. Like whatever needs to be like removed it's going to happen. And because you have to make way for the new, like just like toxic like situations, to make way for greater things to come your way. So this is a time where you have to choose. Spiritual warfare is real. The downloads are coming fast. You have to stay centered. Fear is really, just the frequency of a low vibration, and really of lies too. I saw this recently, which I thought was super interesting too. Will fear, FEAR, cause you to forget everything and run, or will you face everything and rise? So it turns like, the FEAR, forgetting everything and running, to face everything and rise, because this is exactly what I was saying months ago. The shift has begun. It's happening, and it's, you have to choose, are you going to, stand in the light and be who you're supposed to be here right now on this earth to be, or are you going to run? So this is all about choices, and, making those conscious choices and taking action for one's highest self, and their highest good. Because, like, it's just like, that's that battle that's happening. And it's also like a lot of people too, especially the internal battle, many are experiencing where they, are reaching out for the new, but yet they're still unconsciously clinging to the old because that's what they're familiar with, like, even like, for example, like, someone can maybe have a really toxic relationship with a family member, even a parent, but because they're their parent, they feel like they have an obligation to, still have a form of a relationship with them. And, because that's also, like a coping mechanism. It's an unhealthy coping mechanism. It also could be a form of trauma bonding. But, it's making those realizations too, that it's like, okay, this person is not healthy. This relationship is not healthy. This is not what a healthy, parent and child relationship is. And it's like releasing that and letting go. I will just mention something personal here too, come April, late March or early April, I don't remember exactly when, but I mean, it'll be like 2 years since I had made the decision to not, have my birth mother in my life, my biological mother. And, it was, I think I mentioned this in another video, a couple other videos that I did in my spiritual journey, but it was just like, it was just realization after the one day after the church, like, the similarities between her and another, and it was like, oh my gosh, they are almost exactly the same. And so And then it's right there, I knew like she was absolutely not supposed to be, a part of my journey. And it's one of those things like, you have to break those ancestral habits. Like I really, it's kind of gross when people say, oh, you have to do something or for someone, especially like if someone's your mother or someone's your father or your brother or your sister, like some type of family tie. Or I know that, or a friend, a toxic friend, like, oh, I've known them forever or whatever. And it's like, no, if something's unhealthy, it's unhealthy. It's toxic, whether it's a karmic relationship or, it's an unhealthy situation that needs to go. It's no longer serving you. Out the door it goes, bye-bye. You have to make way for the new to come in. And I think too, it's like, I'll mention, like, as like I said, I'm coming up on a couple years, and it's a very freeing feeling when it's like, I don't have to deal with that type of person anymore and the type of feelings and everything that it brought up. I'm very happy, with the choice that I made, because it was for my high self and it was a very healthy choice. And it's just basically hopefully with me even interjecting with saying this personal, my personal experience, you're going to get shown like exactly how I was. You're going to be shown like what you're holding on to and standing the way you finally moving forward. It is safe to let go, where you've always been, who you've always been around. Some people do find comfort in the pain, the suffering, and chaos because it gives that false sense of security and control. If one knows what to exactly to expect, it feels safer than stepping in brand new territories, in the uncertainty of the unknown. But, letting go is a journey within itself. And, it oftentimes it won't happen overnight, and don't beat yourself up. You'll let go when you were truly ready, one step at a time. Obviously, sometimes, it can happen like that, but it just depends on where someone is on their journey to. Have they done the work? Have they stepped into things? Like, are they, consciously making the effort to, step into their purpose and also their mission and just truly like heal. So it just really depends too on like where someone is on their journey and like where their vibration and energy frequency level is at. So, it's a, sometimes, people can feel like, sad and scared, but it is safe to embrace emotions that don't feel good. And it does help, by also practicing the compassion towards yourself. It enables you to begin detaching from what isn't serving you a little bit more each day. The more you run away from what you're feeling, the stronger you amplify those very feelings. So you have to like treat your emotions as messengers, and it will be easier to allow them to simply come and go. Just don't over analyze why you feel a certain way, just feel like the whole thing, to get from out of like your head, get out into your heart, and feel, and sometimes when you create all the scenarios and stories to that, what you're feeling, it just makes it even more difficult and uncomfortable to release and move forward. And I mean, I've noticed this after like I, did a little bit more research. I said like, I mentioned that, the collective, has, been experiencing such like heavy clearing energy since the fall of 2022, but the fall, like there was a lot of stuff that was happening like last year in the fall of 2022 that was, I guess, very similar to the awakening of 2024, light workers and star seeds, and being more activated and how to move forward with your heart's ready, which is interesting because, as I said before in other videos, like I went through mine in the fall of 2020, and then things kind of just like ramped up from there. So that was interesting that just finding that similarities with stuff. So other things I want to talk about too, there's just a lot of stuff here I'm just trying to get out here for everyone who watches this. So like Neptune and Jupiter, the expansion with no limits in Pisces, they brought us high prices of natural gas, which was Pisces, now hoping when Saturn reduction enters Pisces, gas prices stabilize and gradually start to go down. Jupiter will enter Taurus, the sign of money, this year too, which can indicate rising prices. But at the same time, Saturn will try and regulate this expansion with its sextile to Jupiter, hopefully by regulating and slowing down the gas prices. The only thing which is worrisome is that Pluto is changing signs. Last time this happened was in 2008. So usually big shakeups happen in these years. If it was not for Pluto changing signs, the year could be, a little bit more stable regarding that, but Pluto will not enter fully into Aquarius before 2024, 2025. It will keep changing signs between Capricorn and Aquarius. So in these coming 2 to 3 years, the political elites and major players will really change. New faces will appear, some with more altruistic motivations, others with very digital and technocratic agendas, but we will see brand new faces arising over the coming few years. The old familiar and long-standing structures will really fall off, but what is coming in their place? Something Aquarian, something very technological, more futuristic, more collective and participatory, can't even pronounce anything, sorry. Subscription-based culture, communication nature, where things are shared by majority, plus fast-paced transformation of the consciousness of humans. The real shakeups will come at 2025, 26, when Saturn and Neptune start aligning towards Aries. So something with the Navy and warring over water is one possibility. New ideological movements and structures, more socialistic. Neptune, Saturn always connects to socialism or communism structures. This can be great if used correctly. The right support and structure for those in need, social care, etc. But also it can be used in dangerous ways, like we've seen in the past by some such regimens, because the manipulative ideological tools Neptune used by the system, the governments of Saturn during such periods to spellbind the population. Even in the worst case scenarios, good things also happen. God and natural evolution of consciousness plays the long game and uses everything for the advancement of humanity. So there's a lot, just going on already, just from both the astrology side and numerology side of things, that there's a lot of things that are already, maybe different ways how information gets, calculated and researched to get more definite answers, but there's a lot of similarities in those answers and the conclusions. I'm doing a lot of talking, so I needed some more water. So where I left off, talking more about astrology. So Pluto in Aquarius is the time most incarnated souls have been waiting for and came to witness. And the Pluto in Aquarius is literally, it's going on for almost the next, over 20 years, because it starts here this year of 2023 and it goes to 2044, so 2044. So yeah, that's about like 21 years. So yes, Pluto in Aquarius, is the time most incarnated souls have been waiting for and came to witness. It is a pivotal period during which the future evolution of humanity and society will be determined. Since Aquarius is a sign of humans and consciousness levels. This is the first time in 24,000 years when Pluto will be in Aquarius during the astrological sign of Aquarius. History will be made. The new age will be ushered in full speed. And when Pluto touches an area of your life, it will never be the same after that. As I mentioned before, that the 20-year transit of Pluto in Aquarius, that's going to shake a lot of things up too in one's personal life, and very much impact one's own soul evolution. So it's one of those things too where everything, in one's external life and internal world, which is outdated, will be swept away. The plate will be cleaned so you can create a new reality in that area. And definitely, especially because, Pluto is the planet of death and rebirth. So other things I want to mention too is that, especially for the impact of what 2023 is. And I think a lot of spiritual channelers and workers have been feeling that whole feeling of, you gotta like speak your truth. Like this is a time where you need to really do that. And they say with Saturn and Pisces, 2023 to 2026, like this is a time where, especially, with that Saturn and Pisces, the truth will set you free. So Saturn enters Pisces on March 7th, 2023, so next month, where he'll stay for just over 2 years till May 25th, 2025, when he goes into Aries. Then he'll retrograde back into Pisces from September 2025 to February 13th, 2026. On March 7th, 2023, Saturn, the great planet, hits Pisces, the ocean of undoing. So from 2023 until February 2026, Saturn will make order from the ethers of technology, culture, pharmacologically, and spirituality, and the withdrawals will be rough. It's going to encourage more people to get sober and grounded, as well as a wider conversation on mental health and addiction. When Alcoholics Anonymous was founded in 1935, Saturn was also in Pisces. People can overcome toxic families and relationships and experience the rock bottom, which leads to sobriety. For the past few years that Saturn has been in Aquarius, there's been a need to focus on individuality and to be more authentic rather than giving into peer pressure. Even though Aquarius is known for being rebellious and marching to their own drum, they surprisingly are really good at worrying what other people think, even if they argue otherwise, because Saturn is about restrictions. It's so we have no choices but to sit alone with ourselves. Think about the pandemic restrictions and look at where we could stand to set better boundaries. A lot of those lessons have been preparing us for what's to come with Saturn in Pisces, whereas Neptune glosses over the details and makes traits of a certain sign seem better than they are. Saturn does the opposite. Neptune gives the ability to dream and fall in love, but Saturn is more interested in the here and now and what's tangible. Naturally, in Pisces, it'll be tricky to navigate the idea that we've been lied to in spiritual practices that might even cause some people to leave certain religions or belief systems, or to at least start questioning them. The good news is that we can start being more mature about how to incorporate spirituality into everyday life while still maintaining the sense of groundedness. Because Pisces and Neptune also rule the entertainment industry, there may be major studios and record labels that will start to shut down, and many artists who've been attached to those studios and labels will decide to go rogue and create their own instead. We've already seen this with the North Node and Taurus, but the shift will be more obvious once Saturn takes its first steps into Pisces. If you're an artist, you're going to be more interested in using your work in a way that's beneficial rather than letting people on top get the profit instead. There's also going to be less interest toward special effects and a bigger focus on independent films and stories that mirror everyday reality. One of the great things about this is we're also going to become a lot more appreciative of the beauty around us and less interested in filters and glamour. Some people who won't enjoy that period are religious leaders and conspiracy theorists. An example of this is when Pope Francis visited Canada this past summer to meet with First Nations communities about the atrocities that happened within residential schools. Beyond that, we might see conflict between people of different faiths and a bit more of a tendency to try and control what everyone else chooses to believe in, especially for those who've been into spiritual practices for a long time. It's important to avoid dictating how others use spirituality. The most important thing to remember is that Saturn is the planet of karma as much as he's the planet of responsibility and maturity. However, karma is also a very misunderstood thing. We tend to look at it as something bad, but reaping what you sow isn't bad as long as you've been doing good work, right? So in all fairness, with Saturn and Pisces, we can expect to see a rise in people speaking out against scams, manipulation, false prophets, spiritual bypassing, and the icky God complex. Some people in the New Age community are, some of them have that. And in the wise words of, feminist author Gloria Steinem, the truth will set you free, but first it will piss you off. In a way, we might not even realize that the wool was pulled over our eyes the whole time, which is also relating to so much of what the spiritual awakening is. It's like collapsing the matrix and bringing in 5D and the higher levels. So for thousands of years, Saturn was thought to be the final planet in our solar system, the known edge of consciousness. So ruling borders and endings, Saturn teaches us our limits, helping us assume form so that we can meet our destinies in finding shape. Saturn can manifest as like Obi-Wan or Padme, wise mentors instructing you in techniques and mastery, but can just as often materialize as the Trunchbull, patriarchal terror, which forces you to stand up for yourself and use your powers for a purpose. Without Saturn, we would never realize our potential, take responsibility for our actions, learn how to cope with the hard realities of life. On a global level, Saturn's transits deal with structures and monoliths, some which must fall so that new ones may be built. Saturn often stands for the traditional patriarchal and capitalist, which must be reckoned with either by rebellion, assimilation, or reinvention. Saturn's arrival in Pisces culminates a cycle that began in 1996. So what's interesting is, Saturn and Pisces, like the last time. So Saturn last toured Pisces between May 1993 and April 1996 with some retrogrades. So this transit began with a Senate commission on the effect of violent video games on young minds, set off by Mortal Kombat. Saturn would depart Pisces a few years later, just before the debut of Scream, which, satirized the notion that young people could be corrupted by the media, even to the point of homicide. The cultural event was overwhelming, deafening, and soul annihilating. The Pisces Kurt Cobain would become the ultimate messiah figure of the age, embodying a revolutionary artistic sensitivity that could not endure in a savage cannibalistic industry. The heroes of Reality Bites and Transpotting coped through disassociation and addiction. Of course, also the final girl of this new age screams, Sidney Prescott would beat her way to the end through iron hard, Saturnian sobriety, never drinking the Kool-Aid of nihilism and fame addiction. This is life, she says to her would-be killer. This isn't a movie. Culture had perhaps never reached a more bombastic, overwhelming deluge than at this point, but those who could safely cruise the current and preserve their individual points of view returned with artistic rails, which synthesized and revitalized all that had come before, Jurassic Park, Pulp Fiction, Toy Story, and Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone revived old themes through new technologies and sensibilities. Meanwhile, the X-Files and Grant Morrison's Invisibles brought conspiracy culture and unconventional radicalism into the domain of pop fiction. And by the time Saturn entered Aries in 1996, a new consciousness had emerged, fed on by pop culture and the World Wide Web. The century to come would bring fast evolution and bitter backlash. Its symbols would have to be armed with wit and with will to endure the deluge, like the flood of everything. And so arrived new warriors such as Buffy the Vampire Slayer, who I personally absolutely love. These mortal characters and archetypes could be picked off but never corrupted. And this leads to going on Saturn and Pisces this time. So Saturn will cruise through Pisces from March 7th, 2023 through March 24th, 2025, then from August 31st, 2025 until February 13th, 2026. So this ends a full cycle of hyperpop late capitalism, which began in 1996. So the boom of the 90s culture seems quaint now. Everything, everywhere, all at once sums up the Piscean whirlpool of influence, stimulus, and noise all around us, both dazzling and destroying. Every aspect of life is digitalized, surveyed, and branded for advertisement. Experience has been memified. Impending climate doom has encouraged nihilism, despair, and depression. We need direction as only Saturn can provide. Globally, Saturn will introduce ethics to levy the floods, look for increased accountability over the adult film industry, calls to raise the minimum age for social media target advertisement, which is currently 13 years old, and regulation over Silicon Valley, the opioid crisis, a preventable scourge wrought by the pharmaceutical industry will be reckoned with, along with the Western over-reliance on psychopharmacology. Those controlling the streams of consumption will have to face accountability, however minimal they may take form. On a personal level, the excuse of overwhelm and disassociation will grow tiresome. You'll have to take responsibility for all of your mindless behaviors, from scrolling to snorting to swiping. Nihilism in the face of apocalypse will no longer be interesting, nor will conspiracy theories, which conveniently cast you as a perpetual victim. The children of the 90s had to clear a path out of the AIDS, Holocaust, and late capitalist malaise. The new generations will similarly have to take claim of their destinies, no matter how grim the forecast for climate catastrophes, social disconnection, and mass surveillance. Jane Fonda, who was born with Saturn in Pisces, she ditched her patrician image to fight against bloodshed. Sinead O'Connor left the mainstream music industry behind to retain her authenticity. Robert Downey Jr. Went from unstable and uncastable to all-powerful Avenger. Whether the choice is to defy, desert, or assert power, a choice must be made. Those without sobriety and accountability will inevitably drown in the stream. Subsumed by the algorithm consumers who never became creators. That's not to say that everyone will have to buck up and suddenly get hard. Count on Saturn to validate recent expanses in psychology and self-definition. The language of IFS, the internal family systems, have gained popularity through its embrace of inner children, and this will enter the mainstream dialogue more regarding care and recovery. The rising generations of digital natives will elect how they'd like to put their vast and versatile skills to use. Like, what would you do with your gifts? What would you like to do with your gifts? As Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune all cross through Aries over the next decade, a new pantheon of artists will rise, voice and language of the future. The nostalgia machine will dismantle as original points of view led the way forward. The answer won't be to shun technology, but for it to be put to higher service. Those who experience their Saturn returns in Pisces will come out with a sense of purpose, perspective, and eagerness to share their gifts with the world. A new form is evolving, one which can swim upstream through a maelstrom of conspiracy theories, political mistruths, franchise reboots, reaction videos, and targeted ads. For those with the optimism to look forward and the will to carry on, Saturn will prepare you for the trials to come. Pisces is the sign of sacrifice, or the divine ascetic who renounces the distractions of the world. Don't be afraid to let go of it all. Only in silence will you hear your calling ring out. So, it's really interesting to see that, two different forms of spiritual work, like between, and energy work really too, between astrology and numerology, that so many, there's so many points that they stay the same, they're saying the same things, this is really a time, where people will be feeling like they're put to that test. And just the fact too, and this is even something I was saying months ago before starting really delving into the research, where it's just people are going to feel like you're going to put to that test. Are you going to run, or, you're going to face yourself? Because at some point in your life, you can't outrun things anymore. You're going to have to like look in the mirror and face yourself. And when people really get to the nitty gritty of it, when they face themselves, there are probably going to be choices and decisions that they made that they are not going to be happy with. But the best thing you can do at that point is to just rectify things as best you can, let go of things, and just try to make peace with stuff. And, you know, you have to make the choice, like, especially as, you know, earlier, just we were saying, you know, like, you're reaping what you sow. Like, if you're doing great things, like, you can expect good things to happen. If you're not doing so great things, making not great choices and decisions, then this is probably not the greatest time. This is going to be like a hard time because you're facing yourself. And but the fact is that we do have that energy of working with to get to our higher self, like whether, you know, sobriety, you know, with like in addictions to whatever someone is addicted to, like this is the energy to really reach that sobriety. And I remember even like years ago when I was getting my associate's like degree, like I remember one of the I forgot the topic of it, but I actually, for one of my psychology classes, like I chose the stuff with sobriety. And it was interesting because I picked a few people, I forget all of them, but I remember I specifically mentioned, you know, Robert Downey Jr. and even like Nicole Richie, like at a time where obviously like they were indulging, you know, in not the greatest things, especially with alcoholism and drugs and other things. But the fact is that like they made choices to get better. And, you know, like I really loved how even what I found out with, you know, from Robert Downey Jr., you know, like I remember that time when he was literally unstable and uncastable, and then he worked himself out to be Iron Man. And now I mean, if you love action movies, of course, you love the character. You think like, wow, like he really got his shit together and he is a completely different person. So it's like working with that energy, right? We can never go back and like change what happened. We can't change the past, but we can move forward and make a brand new beginning. And that's like again, with like ties into the whole stuff, releasing what no longer serves you so you can make way for the new, because you can like make way for the good to enter, but also for like new positive and healthy choices for your life to get to your higher self, to be more authentic, because the energy is working with you to be your higher self, to raising the consciousness, to raising that vibration. It's really working, but of course it all comes down to the choices that you are going to be faced with and making this year, you know. And yeah, I just hope and pray that there's a lot of people that make the right choice, because you can lead a horse to water, but that doesn't mean you can make them drink. So just I you know, the universe, the energy this year is working with people who are really trying to overcome not so great things in their life. So you know, just sending lots of love and wishes to them that they move forward and they realize that they have the capacity to move forward and put themselves in a different life than what they think they are already in. It does get better. So just have to make those choices. And also when I mentioned to like the religious stuff and the spirituality things, because there is leaders in both religious and spiritual that are not the greatest. And it's one of those things where you always have to, it's like respectful of what other people, you have to be respectful of what other people view things, because I know there's a lot of spiritual people that are completely anti-religion. I know there's a lot of religious people who are completely anti-spiritual. And it's like, okay, well, that's what someone believes, letting them have that. But there's going to be a lot of things that if you do something bad, it doesn't matter what organization like you're affiliated with, whether it's like religious or spiritual. Like if you're doing something not good, I mean, it's the time where it's going to catch up to you. So it's just a lot of dismantling that's going to be happening. And you're releasing old like structures, habits, like you got to make way for the new. So this is what I have for 2023. I know it's a lot. So I just wanted to make sure it was like very informative for everybody that was watching. And I wanted to mention too that I do have a few different services going on for this year of 2023. Like if you're interested in knowing about your personal year of numerology, I can calculate that. That's one of the services. The other services I have is also the New Year special. The New Year special bundle actually includes like the world year number, your personal year number, as well as, 2 angel card readings. And then I also have a couple other stuff with the New Year special bonus, which also includes what I mentioned for the New Year special bundle, but also what I call a bonus is because it also includes some astrology, which also includes, so that basically is I include like what your Venus return is for 2023, and then also like your sun, what it means for your sun, moon, and rising sign for 23. And also I can have a separate service where it's just really for the sun, moon, and rising for 2023, and then the Venus return for 2023. So those are a couple of different services I'm having, because it's basically just helping somebody know personally how things will hit someone on that more personal level for this year of 2023. Is like there's so much going to be happening, and we're just in the beginning. Like really, like we conquered January. We're now in the middle of February, so we have many more months ahead. So this is just a time where, some people can feel out of place or just feel like, oh my gosh, more stuff is happening. But, the energy is really working with us to keep us going forward on this journey and to be our higher self, to fulfill our soul mission, our life purpose, like, and who we're just supposed to be, but also be very truthful to who we are, and to be more of our, who we are, like heart-centered. As I mentioned many times, it's like literally coming out of like ego, like what you're thinking, and dropping to your heart space. So if anyone, is interested in those services that I just mentioned, can reach out to me on my Instagram or my Facebook, or even just email me directly at phoenixhealing@gmail.com, and I'd be more than happy to talk with you and we can set something up. But as of right now, like I said, this is the information I have going forward for 2023. I hope those who have watched this have found this very insightful and just helpful in their journeys, no matter what stage you are, because we all are on different journeys. And just as long as someone found this helpful, I am very grateful. So with that said, I hope you all have a very, very wonderful rest of your weekend and a great week ahead. And just, keep moving forward on your journey, and just keep being the light and spreading the light and spreading the love, because this is going to be a big year in 2023, and the world, the collective humanity is going to need it. Take care, everyone.